It's getting a little sensual with the mic. So, before the start of our Rage Quit episode, I would like to tell a little bit about Rage Quit's sponsor. So, welcome to another episode of Rage Quit, the husband and wife duo that discusses video games every week. Rage Quit is sponsored by AFK Clothing Co. Are you a gamer? Do you enjoy games? Then check out AFK Clothing Co. for all of your gaming apparel needs. As I record this, I am sporting an AFK green sleeve baseball tee that I absolutely love and wear every week. We'd never be sponsored by something we didn't like. And if you'd like to support the show, head on over to AFK Clothing Co., link in the description below, and type ASI in the promo code box to get 10% off your next order. As always, just follow the bear, and now on to the show.
Ah! It was a false start.
It's always a false start. I don't know how many of these I've edited where it's just Ariel screaming. Or bam, 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 bam. It either begins or ends that way, usually.
So.
Well, it's like rage inducing. It's rage quit.
It's rage quit. That's the whole point I do that.
Yeah, you gotta be like, you gotta channel your rage. So you just make a large
Well, I feel like when you're playing a game and you rage quit, you're not channeling your rage. You're already fucking just like,
it's already channeled for you.
Grown anger.
That's the thing. Like,
it's
just one of those things. Oh, there's the dog.
That make you angry.
That's why it's funny.
Stop.
But, yeah. Anyways, I'm Anthony Schultz.
Aw, I'm Ariel Schultz.
And this is episode 16 of Rage Quit.
Rage Quit.
Okay, apparently the dogs cannot be in the kitchen.
I just wanted her in, so it's like we're back again.
Nobody knows, though. That's the thing.
But that's why it's
dogs
funny.
Freak out. We stop the podcast.
Baby screams. We gotta stop the podcast. Adulting happens. We gotta stop the podcast.
I know. Anyways, this is episode 16 of Rage Quit. It's going to be about kind of like subgenres into
Games.
Main genres of games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about a little bit about Metroidvanias today, as well as kind of a newer genre, Soulsborne.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting. So it'll be a little bit of a deep dive. Probably similar, I would imagine, to our Bioshock one.
Probably, yeah.
Kind of.
More along the lines of those.
Or it's like, just a deep dive into, in this case, a specific genre. That was about a specific franchise and studio and creator,
mm-hmm.
so.
Well, the reason why I brought it up, because I was watching you play some games recently, like I tend to do, where I sit on the couch and pretend to, I take a nap and just watch you play games.
Snap nap.
Snap nap. And I saw that, you would try to finish up a level on a certain game and you couldn't. And then, of course, that's mirrors a minor frustration because that's what games do. And so name Rage Quit. And you get to have to come back after getting a special ability, a key, beating a boss, or doing something. I'm like, this reminds me of when I played Spyro on the PlayStation and obviously the remake and the original. And then obviously some Zelda games I even play that have stuff like that. And it's what piqued my interest. I'm like, I honestly didn't know that wasn't even technically a genre.
Oh, Metroidvania. Yeah, mm-hmm. It's not one where most people that play games are going to, look at, like box art or probably more like a trailer for a game and be like, oh, that's a Metroidvania. Because there is some kind of confusion, especially nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so it fits into a lot of specific games. There's some that are, definitely, hardcore. That's absolutely a Metroidvania game. But there's a lot of games nowadays where it's those kind of elements fit within, a bigger
scope
genre.
of a game, yeah.
Because specifically, you were mentioning I've been playing Ys 8, mm-hmm. Lacrimosa of Donna, and that definitely has Metroidvania elements to it.
It's not 100% like that, no, but...
And I will actually define it real quick, just so our audience kind of knows, so we're not just
no
talking in circles.
He was talking about it, I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, because we were originally pitching the podcast more as
platformers.
Platformers and stuff, but I was a little unsure of the focus of the podcast. So we talked about it, obviously before we started recording. But
what? We do that?
Yeah, there's some planning involved.
Dang it!
In conversation. So this is just via Wikipedia. I'll just read the one paragraph.
Not the whole paragraph.
Well, no, it is a whole paragraph, just not multiple paragraphs. The term Metroidvania is most often used to refer to a platforming game that features a single large interconnected map, generally with discrete rooms or sections. Not all areas of this map are available at the start, often requiring the player to obtain an item, such as a weapon or a key, or a new character ability to remove some obstacle blocking the path forward. Often this item is protected by a boss character, providing story-driven challenges throughout the game. Maps are nonlinear and often require the player to traverse the map multiple times during the course of the game. Weaker monsters will inhabit other parts of the level, respawning when the player revisits those rooms, and often can be defeated to gain health, ammunition, or experience points. So that's just kind of like the underlying like concept, or
isn't it a combination of two names, Metroid?
Yeah, so there's a super famous Nintendo series, Metroid.
This is why we kind of like, we're talking about it because it's a combination of two names, actually.
Yeah, it's a Portmanteau, which you're famous for.
Mm-hmm. I Portmanteau that bitch up.
Oh, yeah, all the time. So Metroid is a famous Nintendo franchise that started with Metroid. On the Super Nintendo, there was Super Metroid, which is very famous. Even I've played it. I was, like, our listeners know I was a Sega kid growing up, but even I played Super Metroid. I know fans are kind of clamoring for a new one now. There hasn't been one in quite a while.
Yeah.
And then the other half of that is Castlevania. Specifically Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which came out on PlayStation 1. That has a very long kind of story history too, all the way back to like the NES and stuff. So,
which I think is kind of cool how they like combine it's obviously on two separate consoles and like, hey, they actually will kind of do the same thing, which makes sense. A lot of games do that, anyways. But
yeah, and Metroid, it's definitely more in that subgenre of like a Metroidvania. It's more heavy Metroid wise, probably because Castlevania kind of experimented with different ways to do things and gameplay and level design and stuff like that through like each of their early like installments,
which is kind of cool.
Metroid was pretty. Metroid, again, the first one on the NES may not have been like the first of its kind to kind of do that, but it was the one that was like people loved and was like well received and like thought about, and then Super Metroid came out and that was like it was a very big deal and well oftentimes top 10 games ever for people.
Well, it's like isn't it both of them? No, I might be getting this one backwards because we just talked about this. Aren't they both inspired from the original Zelda?
Not necessarily Metroid per se, because that was Nintendo owned as well. I'm sure that there was some kind of communication.
Yeah, influences.
So there would be some influences, but specifically Capcom, yes, tried to mimic what Nintendo was doing with Zelda. And so they wanted obviously like a gothic horror kind of inspired one. That was their spin or take on it. But as far as like level design and even like maybe not necessarily a top-down perspective, but like a side perspective, they wanted that kind of like omniscient worldview that as the player. And then so you see like the entire level.
Yeah.
Or like in the original Zelda on the NES, you saw it was drop down. You saw an entire like main area or tile that you could explore before you moved on to the next one.
You see like this little prison there. You're like, oh, why can't I get in that door? That fucking pissing me off right now.
Exactly, and so then therefore because they were pulling inspiration from Zelda, the really early ones, some things like that where things were locked out and you had to
feather my cap for that, by the way.
You had to get certain items, obviously, in Zelda to unlock certain areas. But in the original ones, you could kind of do things in whatever order you wanted. Yeah. Like, there's a fast way to do it, but you had the freedom to explore.
Yeah. You weren't having to go...
Really kind of the first, like, open world game, too, when you think about it. Zelda.
Don't get me on that rally of open fucking worlds. We're not in that.
I know, right?
Alright, move on.
But yeah, they definitely did take inspiration from Zelda. Castlevania did, for sure. And then, between Metroid and Castlevania, we get this kind of interesting subgenre of, like, action-adventure games called Metroidvanias.
A few, like, recent ones, too. Like, we were talking about, like, Spyro. For granted, it was originally on the PS1, and then it was re-released on PlayStation 4 as a remastered.
As a platformer, though, like, absolutely. Like, especially the second one.
Oh, the second one, most definitely. The first one
is very Metroidvania
more
style.
Than, like...
Yeah. First one, I would say, is just more of kind of a traditional 3D platformer.
Yeah, the second one, though, because obviously
you have to do backtracking, you have to get certain abilities, you have to purchase certain abilities to go back to the other levels. You can quickly travel between levels, like... You can easily exit out of a level to go to like a homeworld and then go to another level because you bought an ability from Moneybags.
Dude, yeah.
And can use then said ability to unlock a new area in an old level that you already did. So it's like, it definitely has very distinct Metroidvania elements.
That's like a good kind of segue to piece together the time frames, I guess, from like, the first PlayStation is remastered Spyro, and then of course we got
I think Darksider, we talked earlier. Darksiders, I thought was a really good example.
Darksiders,
that totally is.
Oh, straight up is Darksiders.
And people compare, especially the early Darksiders games, to Zelda in particular. So it's like you can definitely kind of see the thorough line between like Darksiders, Zelda, Metroidvania, which we kind of discussed, and how they all kind of relate to one another.
Well, like the second Spyro as well, which makes more sense to it that way, because that started getting like more popular, and it seems to be very popular nowadays. They just seem to combine it with RPGs like Ys,
they are more complicated for sure, and they're kind of wrapped up into other genres as well. Like you get more distinct ones with like Bloodstained.
Bloodstained is what I was trying to get towards, where it's like
that's like most definitely. Metroidvania.
Yeah,
and that has all the hallmarks of a Metroidvania.
Hallmarks. She's in the past and still getting gun jokes. But yeah, no, so it's just funny to see that. I like the idea of seeing, obviously, where the origins are and how it's still to this day just such a big thing to do. And people obviously fail too. Like Ukulele, like we were talking about, was meant to be that, but that game was so janky when it started out. Like, oh god,
that was bad. Yeah, I don't know if like that would necessarily like fall into.
Well, we didn't really play that one enough.
Yeah, I didn't get far enough to know if like there's backtracking and you get like powers and stuff or abilities. Like,
I feel like
I don't know
may
for
have
sure.
tried to have been that, but at the same time, it was just so freaking janky in the beginning. Like, it was just horrible motion sickness, and
yeah, it was rough for sure. You can play like these remasters or some of these other ones and you're fine.
Oh yeah.
And then I try to play that and I don't really experience motion sickness, and I did with that game. So I had difficulties playing it. Supposedly the sequel or whatever like 2D game that they did afterwards did really well.
Yeah.
So, and it was a good game. So
how do you feel about those Metroid games?
Metroidvanias are actually some of my favorite. I may not be the biggest Zelda fan. Like I played some of them. But I played all of them. I missed out on like the most popular ones with the 64, but I played Oracles of Ages and Seasons, which definitely have like a distinct Metroidvania kind of feel to it. Darksiders I really liked, and I remember at the time, especially when the first one came out, people were like, "This is like a Zelda clone." And I was like, but I didn't quite have that connection.
Yeah, you didn't play Zelda.
Yeah, so I missed out on a lot of the 3D Zeldas, and I hadn't played them yet. And so it was like, regardless, this is awesome. Like, even if it is like a Zelda clone, like, I'm totally down with this. Like, I really enjoyed the first Darksiders. 2, I didn't get too much into. 3, I really enjoy. That seems to be, like, more return to form.
It is, yeah. The second one was weird. We didn't even finish it.
I will, and I'm excited to play Genesis.
Yeah,
just because that seems to be more like a Diablo light.
Diablo, the game we like to play.
There's been a ton of games over the years that I've really enjoyed that are Metroidvanias. And the 2 games that make up Metroidvania, Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid.
What are your top favorites?
Yeah, those are some of my favorite games. I really enjoyed both of those. And then there just is a lot of DNA in that genre in a lot of games that I play. Yeah, because that's probably the biggest genre of games I play now is probably action adventure games.
Yeah, it's true.
And a Metroidvania is like by extension, like naturally an action adventure game. It just is.
So do you feel like some games go too far into that genre, the Metroidvania, where like obviously the Bloodstained one, that one.
Bloodstained I liked. I just found it a little frustrating. I almost wish that they had leaned harder into it. Actually.
Really? Why?
Just to make it didn't feel like it had that kind of classic vibe to it, and that was more with like the 2D or 2.5D art style that they did. A lot of these older games they had like hand painted backgrounds and stuff. So this is more like an art aesthetic. Yeah. And then it felt like they like overextended and tried to include other elements.
Like the weird cat creature.
I'm fine with stuff like that, but it's like I felt like they just tried to include other elements from other genres into it to make it like bigger and better and like flesh it out more. But I don't think they needed to do that. I think they could have like stripped it down, and it could have been a very like classic like Metroidvania through and through. Spend the time instead of like making more things to do and focus on like the painted artwork, and things like that to help increase maybe the aesthetic. I know it's cheaper and easier to do like 2.5D stuff nowadays, but I get why they made that artistic choice. But I think it could be better, and actually would have been better if it leaned more into its roots rather than trying to stray outside of it. And at face value, it doesn't seem that it is straying from it, but playing it and diving into it and like you're just thinking about it and kind of reminiscing about it, I don't think it was actually like as close as we think. Like I think it at its core was exactly that, but it added too much stuff to the top layer, and like the classic Metroidvania kind of gameplay style got muddled a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I think it's a really good game still.
No, it is a really good game. I like some games. I like the middle balance where it's got good adventure and story to it, and then it has that replayability in a sense where we have to go back. I'm like, oh, I got this, and I can go back and unlock this, and it's finished.
Yeah.
I like those check marks off. Like, I feel like it's more heavy Nintendo-wise. It's obviously bled off into other genres and games.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about this before. It's more heavy Nintendo-wise because Nintendo doesn't do trophies.
True, yeah, they don't do achievements, but they still have plenty of games where they could.
Yeah, but they still haven't.
And they probably will eventually have some sort of achievement trophy system.
I'm not holding my breath to that. I'm just saying in general, that's, my version of, achievements. So when I go back, I'm like, oh, cool, check.
Oh, like 100%ing like areas and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what that's probably why I'm the trophy whore now, is because I love that too. Like in old games where it was like, oh, this area is 100. It says, in the menu screen, it's 100% complete.
Done, and I got all the treasures and
early platformers like Spyro, and even like Crash Bandicoot and like Jak and Daxter were really good about that. Where it's like, oh, I missed whatever orb in this level.
And then guy.
Yeah. And so then you can go back and like finish it. Like that is cool.
Because his name is literally the guy.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Fucker and trying to run in. I can't get him!
I mean, I like nowadays how Metroidvanias like bleed into like larger genres. Like
RPGs.
I think Yeats is a good example.
Stories.
Like it's got the big scope of an RPG. You have like a complex leveling up system. Like it's got a good story. But in the same breath, it has like you have to defeat bosses to get new like adventuring gear to go to hidden areas or the next area. You have to have a certain amount of like castaways in that game to unlock certain areas to either find more castaways or different gear
or open up the area.
or just plain open up the next area of the game to get to. So I do like that. Large genres that I really enjoy, like RPGs, have very distinct Metroidvania elements in them.
Which is cool. And then it kind of segues into the other one, the Soulsborne.
Actually, I just thought of one while we were talking.
Yeah,
I think there's a good in-between one we can kind of talk about timing-wise. What? The looter shooter. See, like Borderlands is a looter shooter.
Yeah.
Where it's like that's a subgenre of the first-person shooter. It's obviously a first-person shooter.
Yeah.
But it's very much concentrated on the loot that you get. Like you're constantly picking.
Looter, not looter.
No, looter. Like looting. So you're constantly like picking through boxes and crates to like get money or new weapons, and then you get the better ones depending on what events you do or story missions and stuff.
That is true.
Like the looter shooter is a very like.
It's up and coming. It is not quite there. It's just...
Which the very first Borderlands really coined.
And
made its own first-person subgenre. Just kind of like an action-adventure subgenre
well,
of Metroidvania.
I like how games have like their own action-adventure, a genre within a genre of other genre.
Yeah. Well, it's like that with music when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because it's like you can get into like rock music. It's like, well, what do you have? Well, you have hard rock, you have metal, you have heavy metal, like you have scream. Like there's so many different...
Grunge and...
Yeah, like subgenres of music that fit into one overarching Like you have pop music, and it's like, well, what constitutes pop music? And it's like, you can have like electro pop, you can have like indie pop. Yeah, you can have, you can have...
Yeah, I didn't even think about it like that way. That's very true.
It's just... I think it's easy to separate out in your mind two different mediums because one is very, very old. Mm-hmm. Like, music has just been around since the dawn of time.
True.
Like, as soon as we, had the ability to, like, write and create, you had a chance to make music. And so then you're automatically starting to define genres and types of music. And if someone's, like, avant-garde, then it's, like, that could radically change, like, the names of genres and things like that. You look at the history of video games, it's, like, 40, 50 years old at most? And so...
Could you imagine, like, how we just, like, obviously we're going to see it in our lifetime, just the expand on the game. Like, they already got VR and shit like that.
Oh, I've already seen it. It's, like, there's even, a difference within, like, community. Like,
yeah, true.
Like, just younger gamers and older gamers. And it's, like... I fall into the latter category because it's like, well, I started with the NES.
Like I said, latter category instead of the older gamers. That you're old.
But it's like, distinctly remember playing, like, the NES and having it, and, before it was arcade games and maybe Atari and Commodore 64, which I've dicked around with before, too. Like, newer gamers...
What are you doing?
There's a lot of people who are like, oh, the Xbox One's the first console I ever really had. Or the Xbox 360.
Where you tell me about them, like, whoa.
That's and that blows my mind. Because I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Because it was like, how many generations...
Because our son's going to do that, too.
Yeah, and that's where my mind immediately goes to as well. Is like, oh, what's his first going to be? His first memory of it? Like, he'll probably... Remember me playing games, but it'll be...
Which every kid kind of has. They're watching their parents play or try to play or...
Yeah, or movies they watch and stuff. Yeah.
Music they listen to.
So for him, because he's, only a year and a half, 2 years, right at the end of the PS4 generation, it'll probably be the PS5 will be the first thing that he will remember, that generation.
That's be so
probably the PS5 and the Switch.
Yeah.
Are the things that he'll be, like, aware of and maybe have memories of.
And it's just, like, weird.
And for me, it's like I remember being in, like, late junior high, almost high school, and getting a PlayStation 1.
I know.
And it's like, that's so weird.
N64 for me was my first one. And
yeah. And so it's like, that's super interesting.
No, it's cool to see that. I didn't think about that, the Metroidvania, the loot shooters, and now the Soulsborne.
Yeah. I think it's cool to kind of live through those and see it, too. Looter Shooter, I didn't remember when we were discussing before the podcast, but I was like...
Well, it's newest on its own right.
It is. It's not very old. I mean, like, when did the first Borderlands come out? When did Demon Souls come out, you know?
Yeah, good look. I don't know that one. But the one thing I like about Soulsborne is because it's, like, the degree of difficulty, because you can even bring in Neo on this one, the degree of difficulty that they play.
So, yeah, 10 years, like, or 11 now, for Borderlands. So, Looter Shooter, 11 years old, but continue on.
And how it's like where you collect souls or blood or, what is it, Neo? Is it Souls?
2009 as well. That's funny. They both came out the same year.
Huh. Souls as well for Neo? Is it Souls?
What is it?
Karma or Souls? Your healing pack.
Yeah.
It's like an elixir.
Because you can lose them and go back, and it's the same kind of thing. You touch like an imprint, and then you get them back if you can make it before dying again, which is that's Dark Souls and Bloodborne.
Yeah,
I'll look that up as well.
But you collect these, entities, and then you can lose them, but then you can go back and get them, and it's just so weird to see those
distinct also like save points. So instead of like a bonfire in Dark Souls, you have
a crypt.
Your little hut with the kodamas on it.
Kodamas for Neo. Bloodborne is
the
lantern, and then Souls is fire.
That's the fire one.
Yeah. Which are vastly different save points from like all the other games.
Yeah, it's like a focus on a save point, like which I think adds to that genre as well.
Too is like with Bloodborne, which is where
it's called Amarita, and but it is the like souls of like the tangible souls of the fallen kind of a thing.
Haha, called it. So souls, and blood.
Yeah.
Bloodborne is in its blood. It's just like you're always coated in blood. That.
And now we have Sekiro, and which is also from Software, who did Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. So
it's just interesting to see how those vastly different.
Code Vein came out very similar as well, and its gameplay.
Oh yeah,
Code
Vein.
That's a Soulsborne as well.
Well,
just more anime kind of spin on it, but it's like
titties.
Same kind of combat structure. I even noticed, I haven't played it yet, but Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a lot of people said that it was very reminiscent of a Soulsborne. And, like how it functioned and gameplay and like levels and stuff like that.
I can see that.
I could too. It said it wasn't as difficult, which I think is very indicative. How do you
feel about the difficulties of the Soulsbornes? Like with everything we've been talking about, the platformers and all that, and Metro and everything, it's not. They're not nearly as difficult. For granted, yeah, you've got to make a few rounds in those games, but
I think that Soulsborne, I think it's very indicative of Soulsborne to be very brutal and very difficult. And for me as a gamer, I really enjoy that. But I don't think that it is ever... I think difficulty in particular isn't... it's not built for accessibility. It's not meant for every single player to pick up and play. Because a lot of people don't like those other types of games we've been talking about either. Like, they don't like the have to go back and complete it. They like to complete it. They like their checklist to be done before they move on. Yeah, exactly. More linear experience, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Which, that kind of boils down to your, preference as a gamer. Yeah, no, then that does too. And I think, Metroidvanias in particular are more accessible to people just because it's closely attached to base forms of gaming. So you're talking about level design. You're talking about bosses. Yeah. You're talking about, a map. And they're kind of just basic components of, a whole bunch of different games. Mm-hmm. When you get into, looter shooters, it's, that's very distinctly a subgenre first-person shooters. Mm-hmm. So you have to already like first-person shooters. True. All video games kind of, fall into action and adventure. What? Because it's a form of escapism, so it's that's an even broader scope than a first-person shooter. If you don't like shooting in games or first-person shooters, you maybe only like third-person shooters or just third-person action games. What's a third-person shooter? That's a stupid question. Like Gears of War. Oh, okay. Like that one, where it's kind of like the top over the angle style. Even Resident Evil 4 and 5, which we played and streamed together. Where it's that over-the-shoulder third person. Yeah, you're creating the action with a firearm. Okay, I know that one. Never mind. Yeah. I think the most famous and best example would be Gears of War, to be honest. This is predominantly a PlayStation podcast, but it's a good example. Looter shooters just fit within it. So if you don't like shooters, you're probably not going to like a looter shooter. That's kind of what it comes down to. It does have more RPG elements into it and more adventuring. Does. So it's there might be a small bleed over, if you're I don't like any kind of shooter. There's no different than it bleeding. There's no different than bleeding over than the other genres. You're not going to get specifically a... It's going to be a Venn diagram, and I think that one just might be further apart than a Metroidvania would be. I think there might be bigger overlaps with some other genres, like an RPG and Metroidvania. The middle bit would be huge, I think. If you do the same kind of thing for looter shooters and action adventure games, I think it's gonna be a smaller sliver. And I think same kind of thing can be said with the type back, a very unrelenting or difficult game like Soulsborne games can be, is also going to have kind of that in between kind of Venn diagram, just because it's people may really like action adventure games, but it is brutally difficult, so they may not play games for that, No, there's nothing wrong with it. Personally, I enjoy it though. I like hard games, so I don't think we care about your personal opinion. You asked my personal opinion before we preface this conversation. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Witch. I'm bringing out my talent here. Makes me want to play Bloodborne again. All right. But it's just crazy to see how those subcategories come amongst games when they were just kind of... everyone has everything has an origin, but it's funny to see it. Yeah, it is crazy. I think I didn't think about looter shooters when we were talking before, for example. No, but I did think of Soulsborne. But it's cool to kind of live through those. Well, if you think about it too, Metroidvania has been around a lot longer than the other games have been. Oh yeah, Metroidvania is definitely a lot older than looter shooter and Soulsborne for sure.
It's just crazy to see, like we're saying that, and then having them come back with all the remasters and.
Also, you gotta think it's like Soulsborne games could have existed 20 years ago easily. Games are notoriously hard, but you could have like very distinctly like action adventure games with like very distinct save points. Like even in like early kind of 3D PS1 64 tech. It wouldn't be as grandiose or huge or as pretty for granted.
Do you think the reason they couldn't do it is because just... Okay, so kind of to make a big circle back, though, because we, like you said, didn't think about looter shooters until we started talking more in depth. And Borderlands is obviously where it started, but there's other ones like The Division and Destiny.
Oh, yeah. I think those are like prime examples that definitely... Obviously came after Borderlands. But both games as a service, which
I think it's why we didn't think about
it's
it.
kind of new on its own.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the Division 2, which was received really well and did really well. It came out last year. Even I got on that bandwagon.
Well, I feel like the reason we didn't even think about it too, because like I said, it's a service. It's not like Borderlands, which is it's a game.
Yeah, you buy it and then
wait for
that's
the sequel.
it, kind of thing. Yeah, you either wait for a sequel or buy a
DLC,
season pass.
yeah.
Get a DLC package. It is more traditional kind of gaming.
Compared.
Plus, our mindset was we started with Metroidvania, so we're already kind of
We're
looking back and talking about
more
retro
like traditional.
games. Yeah.
And it's just funny to see too as well how it goes from traditional to even a new age genre that aren't traditional. And still traditional. Because you think about it, there's still...
It is. It's such like a mixer match, especially with, you know, we talked about like the length of time with like, say, the music industry.
Yeah.
Like, and we can even boil that down to just say like American music.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, say like maybe last 80 years.
Yep.
You know, let's go back to the 1920s. Like, or more than 100 years now. Ooh. It's not 2000 anymore. Whoops. We're like 100 years. We can talk about, you know, music of the 1920s. And then
This is an easy jump to the 100.
how that evolved and changed. And you get, you know, Billboard charts and stuff like that. And then all these different subcategories and things. It's like if we were very distinctly focused on the 1920s, like, you probably wouldn't talk about Britney Spears. You know, it's like in the context of a podcast. So I think our mindset was very much like in the storied annals of video game history.
I don't think they'd be doing podcasts back in the 1920s.
I wish.
Cool.
Maybe that's the setup. If you could take anything back to the 1920s, like one specific thing, like I'd bring back what I need to podcast. And then I'd podcast with like Hemingway. I don't know how I'd convince him to do it.
Oh my god.
Cole Porter. We'll go back to music.
Dear Lord. Anyways. But no, it's just kind of weird to think because it's obviously that, again, in its own right, is a new age thinking and how to do games and everything, like Fallout 76 and all that.
Yeah, I mean, games as a service, yeah, it's like definitely more
but
of its
still
own
a
genre.
looter shooter, though. If you think if 76 is even considered a looter shooter.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. The gameplay loop is all about getting better and better loot, and you're shooting. Yeah. But it's like Fallout 76 would probably be more of an MMO, or an MMORPG specifically.
Yeah. Well, considering if you think about it with you, though, you don't shoot things, you just smash things with a hammer.
Yeah, I've been melee since Fallout 4.
You've always been melee. You're a weirdo.
When I played 3 in New Vegas, I wasn't. That's the funny part.
Well, we weren't together, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't count. Everything before was just blank slate.
We talked about this on the ride home.
Exactly. You know the rules. Shut the fuck up.
Nothing counts before. There's nothing before me.
It is interesting, though, how, like, talking about very specific, like, kind of subgenres as, like, a topic for a podcast leads you to revelations about other new genres.
Yeah.
And also how they kind of mix and match, like, or how they fit in this side of, like, larger umbrellas or, like, kind of neck and neck and like distinct hybrids of, you know, two different genres. Like, because it did lead us to, you know, we're going to talk about Metroidvanias at first. And I was like, what about Soulsborne? And then in the midst of that conversation, we got a looter shooter, which then you think more about looter shooters and you're like, what about games as a service? Like,
let's connect the dots and make a shape. It's a square.
It's like not technically an MMO, but it's continually
not. It's an RPG.
But it's online. So it's like,
dots. Bulbs. Again. This is too much.
But yeah, I think Destiny and The Division would be definitely looter shooters. I mean, that's the gameplay loop. Is you're shooting. You're done there. So you got either the first person shooter in the case of Destiny or third person shooter in the case of The Division, and the main gameplay loop is just trying to find better and better gear, and even the leveling up systems in both those games directly reflect that. Like your rank starts to go up. You know, if it's Destiny, it's your light level, but that's based on the pieces of like armor or weaponry you have. In The Division, it's the same thing. Like, you know, it's your gear score. And so it's like, that's directly reflected in the genre that it actually is in. Looter shooter, you know.
Looter shooter. Which is so weird how one game, what was the weird ass name Borderlands was going for?
Oh, yeah, I thought about this too.
Because it wasn't initially going for looter shooter. It kind of did its own thing.
They really wanted it to be it was like a shooter RPG hybrid, and I think, or like FPS RPG hybrid, and I think that's how it was like initially.
What the hell is FPS?
First person shooter.
You people and your goddamn acronyms.
There's a ton, especially if you get into like the MMO massively multiplayer online communities.
Okay,
like,
just shut up. We're not gonna talk about that.
And their jargon for some stuff, like communicating with people
and
things. I'm like, oh, I don't know what any of that means. Like
English. English.
I know like the baseline stuff for gamers, like genres and stuff.
Fucking noob.
Noob. You weeb.
The fuck's a weeb? Oh my god, it's like the thought shit going on there again. Why not just say it? It's funnier to say it out.
It is, yeah.
Oh, look at
especially since most people don't
think they go with that thought.
That it's like,
look at that thought. You just said that. Literally, just you. Yeah,
you said it twice. Yeah,
you said it twice. You just dropped the hoe.
Yeah, you're redundant. Yeah, which is hilarious. Yes, there's a lot of acronyms in gaming, especially when talking about genres specifically.
Well, I get like the genres and stuff because, you know, we shooters, action shooters, and all that because, like, you know, every game can be a shooter, but not every game's an action shooter, you know.
It's kind of funny though, like you bring that up. It's like you'll say FPS for first person shooter, but you don't say like TPS for third person shooter.
Sounds like a tampon commercial.
Yeah. Or like you have a syndrome.
I got the TPS, man.
Yeah, it's like something syndrome.
It's contagious.
But FPS doesn't come across that way. It could though.
But it could. First person syndrome.
First person syndrome.
Third person syndrome.
That's everyone. Everyone experiences first person syndrome.
Leave my brain alone, okay?
It's funny. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, somebody can call me out if I'm wrong for, like, always, but I think the marketing for Borderlands, like, the official kind of marketing for it, like, in, like, interviews and press releases and stuff like that, is they wanted it to be the first, like, role-playing game and first-person shooter, like, hybrid.
Okay.
They wanted, like, equal parts role-playing, like, equal parts shooter. And then I think after the release of that first one, it really, it was probably by players. How can it
be a role-playing game, though? You don't create your own character.
Well, you don't in, like, Ys. Or Final Fantasy, even. You don't create your own character.
There's a little plane driving over our house. That's cool.
It's more, like... You have, like, a leveling and progression system. You have, like, a skill tree.
Again,
you gain experience.
That's going to have its own subgenres. Everything could be this, but it's not odd. Everything's
yeah, like, you... Like, the moment-to-moment gameplay in Borderlands is definitely a first-person shooter, but as far as, like, how you have an upgrade and a skill tree, like, you get experience from killing enemies. More difficult enemies give you more experience.
Yeah.
And then your character levels up and becomes stronger, and then there's a very distinct...
I feel like you're
like story.
The worst person for a co-host for a video game comp.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I fucking suck at this shit.
I'm the worst because you suck?
No.
What?
You're just like, murder with a head. No, you had the worst co-host. I'm
that's
the
not
worst.
true. I thought you said you're the worst co-host because I suck. And I was like, wait, what? First of all, you don't suck. And second of all, ouch? Why? Like, don't be a dick.
Oh my god. My bad. That's not what I was saying.
But no, role-playing games are more, like, distinctly defined by, like, by having experience, skill trees, you know, a very concrete story. You know, you get A to B from the beginning to the end, and You know, there's NPCs, there's character interaction, there's things like that.
True.
And there are some RPGs where you get to make your own character. I mean, you get like Skyrim or something, or like Oblivion. And stuff like that.
I guess if you want to, like I said, everything can be considered this, but they're not all that.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the early marketing for the first Borderlands was that they wanted to be a hybrid of these two genres, and I think it was like more so the like player base after the fact coined the term looter shooter.
Which would make sense because they always talk about fucking loot boxes and loots and shit and
and the Division 2 is really good about that, and so is Destiny, where it's like, and they really kind of doubled down on the looter shooter, even though they weren't the first, because their like level progression, especially in endgame material, is distinctly defined by the gear you have, the loot you have, determines your level. You know, as far as what is seen to other players or how strong your character is. Yeah. So. Well,
I just think that's crazy how, you know, we got the genres action, RPG, MMOs, and all that, and then we got Metroidvania, Blood Souls, and looter shooters amongst that as well, which if you, like I said, there's always this big tree and it's got a bunch of branch and roots.
Well, there's roguelikes too.
Oh, what the fuck is that? Oh my god!
Usually like procedurally generated levels. And the intent is for you to, like, die within the level, and then you, like, spawn back out of it, and then you, like, go back in. So, like, easier put is, like, there's a big castle. You go into the castle. It looks different every time you go into it, but you explore a little bit further each time.
Yeah, nobody likes that shit.
And then you die, and then you get bumped out, but you've gained something from being in the castle. If anything, at least knowledge and more of the, like, you went further in, you could go longer because you got certain items or, like, equipment or money even. And then you upgrade your dude, and then you go back in. And then you go as far as you can until some of them it's very distinctly you die and you just get bumped out. Or,
you can't go any farther.
You can't go any farther. You're going to die, kind of a thing. It's going to be a game over kind of situation. So you leave, and then you heal, do your stuff, all your inventory management, and then you go back in, and it's procedurally generated. You have to start from the beginning of that castle door, and it looks completely different. All the rooms are different, and then you again go as far as you can, and then again you bump out, and it's just that's the game.
It sounds like some Broforce shit or some what is the Gungeon? Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, that would be a roguelike for sure. There was one I did when I was reviewing games called Rogue Legacy that I really liked. And it was funny because the way they did it was like, that's the kind of the example I used. You went into a castle, and when your character died, that character was actually dead. But all your stuff got like sent out, and then you picked an heir. It was like your descendant.
That's fine.
And then your descendant, like, inherited all your shit. And then that dude, when it was, like, the son of whoever...
Could you imagine, like...
Went into the castle until he died. And then it was his son, that like, or daughter or whatever, that picked up the mantle and then went in.
Could you imagine, like, in that game, the characters themselves...
Well, they had, like, little portraits of the characters who died. So, like, if you were, like, 30 down the rabbit hole and you died, it showed all the other portraits of all the other people who had died. So your ancestors at that point.
And you're playing this game for, like, 20 minutes, and, like, you have, like, 16 characters already.
Oh, yeah, it was, like, roguelites are super interesting.
Could you imagine, no, I'm saying, like, when you're, like, the heir, and you pick up the shit that you have to inherit, you're like, where do you get this sword? Joe Blow down the street's got a better... Fuck, Dad!
Oh, yeah, like his father didn't make it very far.
Yeah.
And then he's, like, excited to go into the castle. He's like, I'm going to do better than all my ancestors. Like, I'm going to finish it.
He's got, like, a wooden
finally.
sword.
And it's like, yeah, his dad did nothing. It was like, oh, man, come on! the PS1...
more games.
The PS1 game that I bring up, like, frequently...
What?
As like a niche one, Azure Dreams, that's a roguelike. Because you go into the same tower, but the floors are procedurally generated. And then you get as far as you can, and then you leave. And
that's definitely more of a personal opinion. I fucking hate games like that.
Roguelites are frustrating. Like, I like the idea of them, but in practice, like 99% of the time, I do not like roguelites. No, I liked Rogue Legacy, and I gave that a positive review when I wrote about it. And it's one that I played on my Vita.
Can you finish it, though?
Yeah, you can beat them. Yeah. Eventually you get to a point where it's like your guy's strong enough where you can like go through every room, even though it's different from all the times before. and like there are like usually like bosses and stuff, and there isn't like end games, so it's like you eventually do finish it, and then usually there is some sort of like end game kind of content where there's like hidden things in the castle that you can get to make, you know, like your castle or your actual castle or town better. Because I think Rogue Legacy, that was a big thing too, is like you can get things to like upgrade your manor, your family manor. And then in As Your Dreams,
30 photos later,
you live in a city around this tower.
Yeah.
And so you can find items in the tower to like upgrade the town that you're from. And that one you don't die repeatedly. It's just like
you get close to death and you have to leave.
You have to leave, yeah.
Or you run out of potions.
And you're trying to like push forward. And the idea is there's like 100 floors in that one. You have to get to the top of the tower. And there is a story and everything to it. And like
so how is there a story? It's just like there's some games like...
Yeah, Rogue Legacy didn't really have a distinct story. As Your Dreams, though, which is a roguelite, did have a story and like RPG elements to it.
But it's a roguelite.
So a lot of like kind of Pokemon DNA to that one as well.
That was not Pokemon.
No. Nah, Pokemon.
It's the 007 all over again with Jurassic Park theme song.
You went through a whole bunch that day, too. Like, you did, like, Jaws, Indiana Jones. Yeah, you were trying to do James Bond, I think.
I don't know why the brain didn't work.
You did Jaws, Indiana Jones. Jurassic Park. Yeah, and then I was like, none of that's James Bond. It was great.
I still think my favorite is doing the James Bond theme song and all he goes grabs his Nerf gun.
That is the best. That's great.
We're teaching him young, folks. We're teaching him young.
Exactly.
No, I feel like that's a good kind of segue to stop.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of crazy different subgenres and stuff. I think the primary ones we focus on this podcast
are the most popular ones.
Yeah, Metroidvania, looter shooters. And Soulsborne.
Fuck.
Yeah, Bloodborne and Dark Souls put together.
Soul something with blood and goo. That's what's there. So those three plus the rogue.
I brought up like roguelikes as if that was more as a joke, but
Fuck you, roguelikes.
Roguelikes are weird.
You're weird.
Those are bizarre ones. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to dissect though and like talk about it. There's so many different like main genres, and on top of that, we're getting all these like interesting subgenres. 2 of which within the last 11 years. So.
I know, and then like you said, 2.
Those games get bigger and bigger and more complicated and start to bleed over into other genres. You know, creativity wise, like you're just gonna get kind of these weird niche genres and games, you know, and some of them are gonna be super popular, like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Sekiro.
You like the roguelite ones, which no one fucking likes.
Yeah, usually more indie games, smaller games. That's an old genre. That's one that like really doesn't exist very much anymore. If you see it, it's gonna be in a small indie game. Yeah, you're not ever gonna see like a AAA Ubisoft roguelike title.
To God, if somebody tries to make it a AAA Ubisoft rogue...
Or tower defense. That's another genre.
I'm going to punch whoever created that game.
I can't imagine playing, like...
Bloodborne, but it was regenerated.
But a roguelike?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that would be so weird. I think there probably is, like, things that you can do with that genre that would, like...
I'm not saying there's not.
Uplift it, you know, and make it, like, a big one, but...
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not, but I'm just saying no one fuck that game.
It's an old one. But anyways, I think that's a good kind of capper to our genre conversation. If you're listening to this, I'm going to change the title. It's going to be Metroidvania, Looter Shooters, and Soulsborne. Right now I have it as Metroidvania and Soulsborne. But...
Well, someone had it in Looter Shooters, but whatever. It's cool. It's like he knows his stuff.
I just thought about it.
Alright, well, this has been an episode of Rage Quit.
Oh, no, yeah, we got housekeeping.
Oh, whatever, fine.
Whatever.
Be proper, keep a theme, that's cool. What's your fucking housekeeping?
So whatever platform you're listening to this on, if there was an easier platform for you to listen on, maybe something you use like more regularly.
We expanded, that's right.
Rage Quit is probably there now. So we are on Google Play Music, which we weren't prior.
Nope.
We're also listed with the Google Podcast Directory. So hopefully you'll be able to find Rage Quit more easily. And you can listen to all past episodes too.
Oh yeah, on YouTube especially. I know it's a big popular one.
Yeah, and so it's not as if you switch platforms and maybe you missed a couple episodes or you want to catch up and you're new, you can do so on any of these. But we're on Google Play. We're also on Spotify now, which
It's legit.
I'm most excited about that one, probably. Yeah, it looks really slick. It has everything all kind of neatly bundled together, all the episodes we've done. Mm-hmm. And, it's free to use. Yeah. So many people use Spotify nowadays for everything. For music and apparently podcasting. Which I did not know that you could get your podcasts on there until I started doing some research.
Now we do. And now
And then, if you listen to us on CastBox, we'll still be hosting there. Oh, yeah. So if that's an app that you enjoy and maybe you downloaded to listen to this podcast, that'll still be our hosting site. So you can still use that app or go to the CastBox page. And then, I will be dwindling down content for ASInquisitor on our YouTube channel, but the podcast will always be there.
Yes, it will.
So that's not anything that's going away. Every week the podcast will be uploaded so you can listen to it that way and have it on the background, on your TV or your laptop or even your phone.
Whatever works.
And then we're on iTunes as well. And we've been on iTunes for quite a bit, but we just haven't plugged it.
No, it's always been Cashbox, but now we've gotten so expanded with how many episodes we've been doing and places we're now posted, so it makes more sense to do it now.
Yeah, and I know for certain, this isn't early, the Google Play one, I've seen with my own eyes, it's posted in there, and as well with Spotify.
Yep.
And then the others we kind of already were. The other thing, and this will be rolling out within the next few weeks or so, is we're going to be listening to podcasts through a myriad of other kind of smaller podcasting sites. So
getting everywhere the tentacle can touch.
Exactly. Where the bear paws can scoop. I'm getting that honey, yo. But, if you use Stitcher or Podbean or, some of these kind of smaller ones and it just happens to be your favorite kind of podcast hosting site, we'll be there within the next month.
Oh, yeah.
We'll that's the goal.
We'll find a place. We'll be there. You'll see the bear. You'll see the fucking bear.
Oh, you'll see it. But yeah, that's it. That's all we got for housekeeping. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Our random conversation about very specific subgenres.
I think it's just a random conversation about a lot of things in our podcast.
Yeah, I do get a little tangential at times, but there's so many different unique subgenres of games that my brain started to work and produce things.
Oh god, that's always bad when that happens.
Usually.
All right, well again, my name is Ariel Schultz.
And my name is Anthony Schultz.
And as always, follow the bear.
Peace. Have a good night. Hey there, guys. This is Anthony Schultz, one half of the duo for Rage Quit. I just wanted to spend a minute or two, at most, talking about Ariel and I's other endeavors or where you can follow her and I if you're a fan of this podcast. So, I'm most prolific on Twitter as far as social media is concerned. I share more kind of gut reaction or private experiences and opinions there. I'm at Anthony R. Schultz. Pretty easy to remember, just my name. And if you'd be so inclined, you can give me a follow, and I also drop Rage Quit links there every week. And other things that Ariel and I are both working on. ASInquisitor also streams, which is the production company that produces Rage Quit, essentially myself at the moment. And I stream 5 days a week. I'm a variety streamer, so I do a little bit of everything. Hopefully, there's something there that you would really enjoy, even if it's just 1 day a week. I take every Thursday and Friday off, and you can follow and or subscribe at twitch.tv/ASInquisitor. All these links that I'm mentioning will be in the description box below, and I will reiterate. Also, ASInquisitor has a YouTube channel. So if you're not listening to this podcast via YouTube, if you're using your preferred podcast provider, this podcast does make its way to YouTube. We will eventually be recording not only our voices, but also ourselves when we do the podcast. We're just working on some equipment issues right now. But we also have past streams that I've done for ASInquisitor that have a little bit more kind of polish or pizzazz to them. They're divided up into better bite-sized chunks for complete game playthroughs or Let's Plays. There's also a lot of unique content there I record things throughout the week as I play games, just kind of funny moments or maybe even like personal achievements, things of that nature. And so you can search for ASInquisitor on YouTube. And again, the link will be in the description below. But those are my 3 kind of primary platforms that you can find me on. So that's Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Ariel actually has her own YouTube channel called Painting with LM Schultz. She's a very talented painter. She has her fine arts degree and enjoys painting for cathartic reasons as well as to improve on her like technical prowess. So she started her own YouTube channel to improve on her techniques as well as show people kind of some basics or things that you can do painting wise. There's also some other kind of crafty do-it-yourself kind of ideas and videos on there as well that pertain a little bit more personally to her and I because they usually involve our family. You know, it's a family project that she's working on. For example, she did our son's Halloween costume, and so she walked through how she constructed and created, the costume and how you could do something similar for your kiddos at home. And then finally, you can follow Ariel on Twitter as well. She is primarily on Twitter, just like myself. We don't really indulge in too many other social media platforms, save for maybe Instagram. I don't think we're as active on there. Ariel might be, more so than myself. But you can follow her at Merhobbit and give her a follow as well. That's my lovely co-host and beautiful wife, Ariel. But anyways, I just wanted to stop in and kind of throw some links your way. And if you were curious about what ASInquisitor was doing and how Rage Quit kind of fit into that ecosystem, there it is. Yeah, got all the links for you. If you're interested in any one of those, all of those links are going to be in the description box below, and they're going to be in every podcast episode now. So I'm not sure if they're entirely there right now, but I'm going to be doing a fresh write-up and make sure and have all of those included for you. So just click a link or copy and paste and head on over if any of those strike your fancy. But anyways, thanks for enjoying the show. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week for more rage quittiness. And as always, follow the bear. And have a good evening, guys.